Okay, hopefully by this point you have made a couple more materials and added a few more game objects to your scene view. So I have the cube from before, I have created a sphere with the dirt material, and I have created a capsule with the rock material. So you've probably already figured out how to move these things a little bit, but we're going to go into detail about what these little gizmos do and how to modify these objects using the gizmos. So when you click on an object, automatically you have this arrows icon selected. That's how you move the object in the three different directions. So you have the Y direction, which is up and down, X direction, which is left and right, and then the Z movement, which is forward and back. And it all depends on how you're looking at it, because when you rotate the camera a little bit, all right, now it kind of looks like the X-axis is forward and back, and the Z-axis is left and right. All right, even if you rotate the camera, if I can do this, a little bit like this, okay, not to make you dizzy or anything, but now it looks like Z is left to right, and red is up and down. Okay, so it all depends on how you orient the camera. And you can always tell how the camera is oriented by this little gizmo up here. It always tells you where the axes are. If you want to skip to an axis right away, you can just click on one of these and it'll switch to that view. So the X is on the right, click over here, now Z is on the left. Click here, it'll go to the top view, right? Okay, so it goes back to all those different views. Alright, so if you lose your object, something like this, you can't find it, you keep moving the camera around, can't do it. Always remember that you can click on the object, hover over the scene view, and then hit F, and the camera will zoom right to it. Alright, see, if you lose your object, it's not a big deal, you can always move the camera back. So that's the movement tool over here. And before in the last tutorial I showed you, you can actually set values for your position, rotation, and scale. Alright, but these commands over here do the exact same thing. If you want to quickly just tweak a little bit your rotation, for example, you can click here with the rotating arrows, and now you get this rotating gizmo. And you can click any of the axes and rotate your object however you like. When I rotate it the y-axis, it doesn't look like it's doing too much. However, when I rotate it around the Z or the X, you definitely see some rotation there. Alright, well, you can also scale, and again, you can scale it in individual directions, make it nice and plump, or you can edit it in all three and increase all at the same size. So maybe it kind of looks like a water tower. But I did move it. Say I wanted to reset my rotation really quickly. Instead of zeroing all these out or messing around with the rotation and trying to get it right, that's why you can set these really quickly. And instead of zeroing them out, you can use this little gear menu right here if you click. And then it has not just reset, but down at the bottom you can reset each of these individually. So if I reset my position, it'll set it to 0, 0, 0. That's the center, if you will, of the coordinate grid. And if I press F, it'll kind of center it there so you can see it there. And you can reset the rotation. This will make it upright again. If I click off of it, you can see it a little bit better. Works pretty good there. And again, maybe I want my scale to go back to 1, 1, 1. So I reset my scale and I have my original capsule. The hand on the left-hand side just moves the camera around. So if you're having trouble moving the camera, you can always click there and slide the camera around so you can find your objects a little bit better. The buttons up here takes the coordinates of where it grabs the object from. For example, if I grab my cube for global, this is the direction of the axes depending on where the object is positioned. For example, if I take this cube and rotate it, so it's kind of off kilter, whatever, a little bit diagonal, kind of like that. The global coordinates of this cube, if I go back to my transform, notice that the axis has not changed in terms of the object. But if I change global to local, this is the local position of the cube. And notice that the axes are in line with how the cube is rotated. So now if I move it up, it's up in regards to the object, where if I go to global, it's in respect to the game world. Right, so that's the difference between global position and local position. We'll be using that a lot as when we get into scripting. So I just wanted you to see the difference there. Okay, so if we wanted to reset this out, you can reset it over here. Okay, for rotation, that would be 0, 0, 0. Position is 0, 0, 0. Scale, you want a 1-to-1 scale. If you want to reset it, it's 1, 1, 1. Okay, have fun creating objects, moving them around. Maybe if you want to create some type of diagram or creature with your objects, feel free to do that. Take a few minutes and explore and get used to using those commands. The next thing we're going to talk about is how to rename objects and then parent objects and move objects in respect to one another. So I have my 3 basic objects here, but we want to make them a little bit more descriptive. So I'm going to take my capsule, for example, and I'm going to rename it. To rename it, you just click on the object and then click again. Okay, if you double click really fast, it's going to zoom in on the object, just like holding your cursor over the scene view and pressing F does. So you want to kind of click and then click slowly again, and you can rename it. If you still have trouble clicking, you can always right click and rename. If you like that process better, feel free, be my guest. So I'm going to put my objects into view here, and I'm going to rename the capsule. I'm going to call it parent. So we have parent objects and then we have child objects. Kind of primitive language, but gaming language nonetheless. So a child object takes the coordinates or position respective to its parent. So for example, if I take my sphere object, I'm going to rename it as well. I'm going to call it child. So if I want the position of my child to move with respect to my sphere, I need to child it to the parent. So that means I'm going to take this object in the hierarchy view and hover over the parent. You see how it turns a highlighted blue? When I drop it in, it looks like it disappears, but it's still in the scene view. Click on this triangle here, and you now see it's basically a sub-object of the parent. That means it's its child. So now when I move the parent, both objects will move in the same direction. Right, so that's what it means to have the parent, which is my capsule now, and the child, which is the sphere. If I move the child, the parent does not move. It's only everything moves that is a child of the parent. Okay, even if I rotate as well, this is going to look kind of funny, but if I rotate the capsule, the sphere rotates in respect to the capsule. If I rotate it this way, kind of makes it look like it has an orbiting effect. Right, but that's all in respect to the parent. Right? And we can even do this multiple times. You could have the cube, a child of the child. Sounds kind of weird, but that would work. Now if I move the child object, it's the parent of the cube, so the cube moves with it. If I move the parent, which is my capsule here, all 3 of them will move because they're all children of this parent object. Okay. Now when you put objects in your scene, you don't need to name them parent and child. I just did that as an example so you could see the hierarchy there. If you don't like the hierarchy of your objects, you can always move it back out. So I can grab my cube, move it out, and for example I can put it here. Notice it has the line across there with the dot. That means it's not going to be a parent to anything. So if I drop it in, now we have 3 parents and 1 child object. And again, I can pull this back out, and now there's no childs, and now I can move them separately. The parent has no child, so they're all moving independently. So that's how you can move objects around in your hierarchy. For example, if I want this sphere to be exactly over top of my cube, an easy way to do that, instead of kind of guessing where this is going to be, since it's 3D space, it's even harder. I need to rotate my camera, kind of position it in there. It's really tough. But if I want this position of the sphere to be right on the cube, all I have to do is click it, set it as a child to the cube, and now reset its position. Notice that the X, Y, and Z position have changed. Let me do that again. I'll come back out of the cube. All right, and we have these coordinates up here, but now when I make it a child of the cube, the position is now in respect to the cube. If I reset this child's position, which is the sphere, go up to my gear menu, reset position, bam. Automatically resets the positions to 0. That means these two objects are exactly over one another. The sphere is at 0, 0, 0 because it's in respect to the cube, but if you look at the cube, it's still in global coordinates and it's not at the origin of the game scene. If I go reset position, now both of them move because the sphere is a child of the cube and the cube is now in the center of the scene. Go ahead, take a couple minutes and experiment with the different childing and parenting effects. See if you can grasp the position there. And again, all you're looking at is the position property of the transform component. Remember, each box is its component, these phrases here in bold, and the properties are what's underneath them. Once you get that all set up and you are familiar with those commands, you can save your game really quick. Notice the asterisk in the top left. I can just do my quick shortcut, Control Save or Control S, and my game is now saved and I'm free to exit.